And we are live.
Yay! I'm waiting for the eyeball up there before we start going into it. And there it is. All
And
right. I am Old New Dude, and he is.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son. And Chris the Crow is waving from the wall. Deck of cards says hello. And Mother Voin says can't wait. And um, I know there were a couple things in the last published Sansa chapter, rather than the last chapter we did, that probably deserved more attention. One of them was definitely there's something bitter in the milk, right? Like, and I can't remember what the other one was, but I know there's things that he brings up multiple times there, and he flashing light on the bitter stuff, right? And
Oh, yeah.
um, and it's a long chapter, and yet he felt the need to highlight some things. I can't remember what the other one was. Darn it! I'm tempted to pull up Discord on my phone, but I'm using my phone to stream, so because I mentioned both of them to Lady Thistle in Discord, and
Mm.
I can't remember what the other one was. But anyway, there's two things there where he's felt the need to really highlight them, and I know one of them was the bitter stuff, right? Because first you got Sweet Robin complaining, and then
Mhm.
Elaine brings it up, and then the Maester's like, "Oh, that was just look over there."
Yeah.
um, it's rather suspicious, right? And George really wanted to make sure that he highlighted that one. I know there's something else, but I can't remember. But anyway, um, and we didn't really have time to go into it. So, like, what do you think's going on there? I mean, it's not nothing.
Yeah.
Well, it's,
Well, I mean, doesn't he follow that up by saying, "I told your father or the Lord Protector or whatever he called him that it can only be this amount of time apart or whatever, or he can't do that again. It's been too soon." But
well, yeah,
if he's
oh yeah,
doing it and somebody else has asked him to do it, and but if he does it when Peter says so, then Peter will know how soon he has asked him to do that. So he can, if Peter says give him some, and then 3 weeks later says give him some more, and then 2 weeks later give him some more, the maester's in the clear, right? He doesn't have to worry about covering it up. But to sit there and say, well, I told your father he couldn't have any more until so and so, there might be a second person that is telling the Maester to give him this to slowly poison the boy, and it's not actually Peter.
yeah. It's interesting because we know that Sansa thinks that Maester Coleman is serving Sweet Robin and not interested in serving Littlefinger and Sansa, right? She says that. Now, is that really true? I don't know, right? Our characters are often wrong. Um,
Well, if
but
he's doing it at Peter's behest and she's his daughter, then there wouldn't be that need for the secrecy as much. Um,
maybe someone doesn't want Sweet Robin to drink it. Yeah, that's another question. Is well, I think there's something there, and I think Maester Coleman knows there's something there because
yeah.
George did the whole interruption thing. As well, he doesn't actually say, "Look over there." Just oh, was his nose bleeding? Anyway, but
Yeah, his interruption of saying something very important and then not saying it.
right, and of course, Maester Coleman being interrupted, like the last one of the times that Maester Coleman is interrupted is when Cat is on the verge of finding out what the true motive of the true killer I confess is, right? The right, because the whole fostering of Sweet Robin twice, and where the murder causes the second fostering, which we learned first, and the first fostering that is the motive for the murder keeps being associated with the second fostering that was caused by the murder, such that it can't possibly be the cause of the murder because it's being associated with something that's the result of it.
Also, involving Cat, you have you talk about Varys, does he know about, and then Peter interrupts and he's like, yes, he does. You don't get to hear what
Right,
Varys
right.
knows about.
Well, and I've argued that the cat's paw is actually somebody else because Tyrion starts to figure out that there's somebody that he's not thinking of that's playing the Game of Thrones, and then he gets interrupted.
Mhm.
But of course, I think that's Mance Rayder, but there is interesting textual evidence that it's actually Robert, right? As we've discussed, that we're told it's a king's man, we're told only a fool would send a man armed with his own dagger, and we're subtly told that Robert's a fool, right? But very subtly in the text, we're specifically told that Robert's a fool by the way Jorah answers the question of is he a fool? And we know that, and we're told that he does things and then gets drunk and doesn't remember them and stuff. And we know the person who was in the room with Cersei, who absolutely did want Bran to be killed, was Robert. and that he often does things that are rash, and then he gets drunk and he forgets about them. So there's this idea that, well,
get drunk and then forget. He does it while he's drunk, and that's
right.
That's
and then claims to forget, and then claims that he forgot. Yeah. But anyway, so
well, also, if he gets drunk, then is he not more susceptible to mind control?
Perhaps. I mean, he's always drunk.
The forgetting being blamed on the alcohol and not actually the mind control.
A drunk sweet Robin would be wild, says Deck of Cards.
Well, he at least deserves to be drunk
okay.
one time before he gets murdered.
I wonder if there's I don't know enough about like epilepsy and potential medicines and things to know, but it is interesting the way George seems to have planted some clues of things like that. Like, for example, we've talked about the fact that could Joffrey have sent the cat's paw? Well, obviously that's one interpretation, and that's the one that people are expected to make. So yeah, it could be that George really does just want that to be that simple. That's certainly possible. I don't think that's right, mostly because Robert is actually trying to do a kindness there. He thinks it's basically a mercy killing, and the person who comes thinks it's a mercy killing. And I have a hard time believing in Joffrey being that compassionate. I just don't. And then I could see him trying to impress his father. But if that were true, he would be telling his father that he was doing it. It would not be, why would you be impressing your father by hiding from the king and queen that you're doing what the king and queen wanted? It seems a little strange. So I have problems with that interpretation personally, but I get that that's the most common interpretation out there. I like the fact that Mance Rayder specifically says that he brought a bag of silver. and King's man could point to Mance, and to me, I don't really see Joffrey or Robert hiring somebody that looks like the cat's paw, and I do see Mance hiring somebody that looks like the cat's paw. But anyway,
I like the Joffrey with the control of Littlefinger just to throw magic again early in this story, and not people not realize, especially on your first read through, that they're looking at magic. That Littlefinger skin changes and does the whole Jedi mind trick on Joffrey. And if you're setting up Robert, then using one of his daggers, a very, very noticeable one.
Right. That's the other thing is why would Joffrey or Robert want to frame Robert? That's whereas your interpretation would be that it's Littlefinger messing with things, right? And that's certainly that's Preston's two favorites are Mance Rayder and Littlefinger. Preston, speaking of which, but as a Preston shirt. The um, but the one of the things that's nice about that idea is that Littlefinger might originally have wanted to frame Robert, and then realized that it's even better to frame Tyrion because Tyrion didn't come back with them, and now that's an even easier target, right? And that's one thing that I do think is worth noticing is that we're supposed to understand that Dorcas, who is Varys, who is Dorcas, knows whose dagger that is and is deliberately lying about it and trying to say, oh, because he doesn't want it. He doesn't want to point the finger at Robert, but he won't contradict Littlefinger, which, as we've discussed in a debate previously. I think that one was never actually posted online, but it was supposed to be, right?
The greatest time. It was the best hour at the entire retreat. I'm telling you, it was awesome.
Yeah. So at the Ice and Fire Con, was that 2023?
Yeah.
At Ice and Fire Con 2023, which is the most recent one at this point, even though it's been more than 2 years, was there was Nettles was hosting. Girl Nettles was hosting a debate, and I think you and I and Girl Nettles were on the same side on that one, right? That's the one where you switched to our side.
Yeah, I was on. Well, no, I started out on. Did I start out on Nettles' side and then switch? Yeah, I was on.
Which side were you on that one? Which side were you on that one?
On the little. I was on Littlefinger side.
Oh, you were. Yeah. That was with us. That was with us.
And then I swapped on the second half of the debate I guess.
Right. So Girl Nettles, you and I were on the side of arguing that, in fact, Littlefinger is the alpha dog over Dorcas Varys. And as much as we're not Littlefinger fans, we were arguing that Littlefinger is, and I brought up the fact that Littlefinger, not only does he demonstrate that he can just boldly lie in front of Dorcas Varys, but he's specifically tells us that he has him by the balls, or would if he had any balls. And we were short on time, so I left off the or would if he had any balls, and people were like, oh, you said that he has him by the balls, but he doesn't have balls. I'm like, take it up with George. This is an accurate quote.
Yeah. I think the question was who would be of more use in the battle for the Dawn.
Oh, there were like a dozen questions on each topic, and we were taking the Littlefinger argument, and that particular one was who's the alpha dog in the room when I was making that argument.
Yeah. Now mine was when they were asking who would be. I remember. I'm trying to remember the setup, but yeah, there was different questions asked.
Yeah.
Between Littlefinger and Varys, who would come out on top, and I want to say one of the last ones was who would be of more use during the battle for the Dawn, and I'm like, Littlefinger, because you need supply. I mean, your logistics. I mean,
he's hoarding supplies as we just saw in the sample chapter.
And they come to find out afterwards, they were all like, "You lost just from being on Littlefinger's side." He's like, "Your arguments were better." Talking about
I had the same thing happen where somebody told me that the audience doesn't like the side that in each case, Girl Nettles and I were on the side against the audience. She was not nice to herself if she was trying to win fans.
Oh yeah, it even got rougher when I switched sides on the second half. I mean, she got feisty, and I think I got a little spicy back. I mean, there's only so much spicy you can put up with without getting spicy back.
Anyway, another thing we didn't.
The second one was Cat against. Was it Cat?
Yeah, something about whether Kat was a good mother or something along those lines, right? I remember there being
Yeah,
some discussion of that.
yeah,
Um, against whom though? I can't remember. I don't know what else it was, other than
yeah.
I know we were discussing
It's been
Kat.
2.5 years. I can't remember. I can't remember last
Yeah.
week.
Anyway,
There's certain things of that
so
day that kind of stand out. But I will say, if y'all went, it was definitely the best hour of the entire ice bike run, in my opinion. It was just awesome. No,
um, there was
under.
there were some other moments there that
I'm
were very
exaggerating.
touching and things. Anyway, but well, I mean, it's certainly the moment when we were having the most fun. But
Oh yeah,
the another thing that came up, of course, is Lou and Martell, right? Toodles and Blue Lemons doesn't actually buy the Lou and Martell thing, but she does. When, of course, most people don't buy that there's lots of Kingsguard running around, and we certainly do. But um, but the but Blue Lemons and Toodles have both written up this concept that, of course, Morgarth the Merry is the elder brother, and Byron is it Byron? Something like that. Is the Hound,
Byron the Beauty.
and yeah, and Shadrick is Howland Reed, right? Um, and
Yeah,
and 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 we didn't get a chance to talk about that as much either. I mean, in this chapter we've talked about it a few times before, but um,
yeah.
and I certainly do think that that's Cease Replicants episode 6, but and anyway, so I do think that there's pretty good evidence to support that, and I have a hard time separating it out from the Lewin Martell stuff personally. I mean, I really do like the Lewin Martell, and of course the shrewd eyes of Westerosi representing former Kingsguard. At least if they have two of them. I'm not claiming that Tyrion is like half Second Life, maybe.
So
um,
who was it that came up with the Sansa is not Ned's daughter? Um,
somebody proposed that on
yeah,
um,
yeah. I'm trying to remember who. And then we touched on it again Monday. Um, I'm starting to like either her or Bran theory a little bit more and more.
okay.
Because I got to thinking about it. We use hair color to suspect unfaithfulness, but then on the opposite side of that coin, then you could use hair color to disguise unfaithfulness. And if you watch the Why Cat Suck with Oriole Greenhand, the very first thing is she's daydreaming about her brother, her sister, and Peter while they're going at it. Well, Ned's doing his best, but I mean, apparently it doesn't get the elevator all the way up to the penthouse. So it's never brought up in her chapter. She said that she loved him. She grew to love him. This man I love. But um, what if? I mean, everybody just assumes that it's the Stark blood that is represented by the dire wolves. But we've already pointed out that it's probably a combination of Stark and Tully, or maybe it's the Tully blood that is the key. Um, the southern houses that all the yeah, I forget what it is, but there's all the houses that are first men that back in the day had superpowers, basically drinks bull blood to get strong, all this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, this is, as far as we know, the first time a southern magical house has married into um, a northern magical house, and the outcome has produced what we think are um, the six Stark children, well, John, well, 5 Stark, Tully's children, and
Deckard just throwing shade on you here. He's saying the hair color part should be moot. Almost all of Ned's kids are red-haired. This is argument.
that's fine. But here's the thing: the red hair is Tully. It's not Ned's.
Sure.
So anyone, I mean,
Right. I
Ned,
mean, there's the concept from Jamie of, well, what if Cersei had just let one of them be trueborn? Then nobody would suspect the thing, right? And so if so, your argument is, well, what if Arya is the one trueborn that she let through?
yeah, I'm just saying this is. I mean, after George, I mean, granted, I have not read all his work. I'm just now into my second work that George wrote, Fever Dream. But I mean, George is sneaky. I'm not saying this is 100% true, but it is a rabbit hole, and there are certain things that could lead you to that rabbit hole. Apparently, not everybody. And but if like I said, if the hair color is to
Talia,
indicate,
yeah, went. He's saying Talia went the hair.
they're the
Right.
magical bloodline from the magical bloodline of Harrenhal. That might be the more important. But like I said, if you're using hair color to prove unfaithfulness, then George could use hair color to hide unfaithfulness. That's all I'm saying. Please don't shoot the messenger. Deck of cards. I'm trying to make anybody mad.
As I've said, I still have a strong fondness for those theories that have some textual evidence that will play out and so forth. But I'm suspicious that George has thrown some things in there in his mind that are nearly impossible to catch. Go ahead.
Bran is 8 at the beginning of our story, correct?
I don't remember. Sounds something like that.
I believe so. 9 years ago was the Greyjoy uprising. So somewhere between 9 years ago, there was a great uprising from the Greyjoys, settled on Pike. Men got called, all that kind of stuff. And then you got a 9-year-old or 8-year-old Bran. So somewhere in between that, roughly 6 months probably, or 8 months before Bran was born, there is a betting. And is the 9-year war put there to make us question who was the other person at that betting with Cat? Was it Ned? Did he have enough time to go off and fight in Robert's second rebellion, but on the side of the king this time, and to take Pike, all that stuff, gather the men, take the fealties, get the
That's interesting deck of cards. So going with this whole idea of brothers cuckolding and so forth, Tinfoil Cat is actually the Blackfish's daughter, right? I mean that definitely fits in with like Euron Greyjoy trying and perhaps and arguably succeeding at cuckolding his brothers, right?
Well, that would explain him getting so pissed off. We think that in the argument that him and his brother have after hearing what his brother is proposing to Ned, that we say Ned is already married, and Hoshitelli doesn't care. Blackfish gets mad. Well, what if it's not the Ned dishonor that the Blackfish is mad about? What if it's the dishonor on Cat?
That's definitely the case. I mean, that's always been my interpretation, is that not that he's terribly mad that Ned's being forced to be a bigamist, but the Cat's marriage is then somewhat questionable. And I've always thought that, and Lysa's, right? I mean, I think he's not happy about Lysa being forced to marry either. So I mean, I think he's not too happy with either one of them. Yeah, or both. Again, yeah, absolutely.
Two brothers. Yeah, we have two brothers. Assumably both with red hair, blue eyes, and larger frames, that either one could be the father of either child or all three child.
Right. And one of the things that's interesting about the Greyjoys is that the kids seem to be, Asha and Theon seem to be tall, right? And Balon seems to be short, right? And Euron seems to be tall. And we know how Euron behaves with his brother's wives. So there's always been this concept that that Asha and Theon might actually be right, and so then therefore you could have this as a parallel, and you've got the theory that that Oberyn might have actually fathered Ariane, right? Toodles has been advocated for that concept, and there's definitely some little things in there that if you interpret it that way are rather interesting, which we tried to bring up as we were going through that, right?
Well, I'm just mad at myself for not realizing the Blackfish was mad about Cat's honor and always just assumed it was about Ned's honor. Because
Well, no,
he
I
was
always
the
assumed he was
one.
more tied to the two Tullys, and that they were the ones that he was always mad, that he was mad about, both of them.
Both men are I mean, honorable, that type of stuff. And it was just Ned was having to put aside his first wife to do this, and that's just the side that I took. It never dawned on me that
No, the people he cares about are the Tully sisters.
yeah,
That's who he
well,
cares
like I'm just
about.
saying, up till now, I had never thought of it that way. I've always
Okay.
thought of it as him defending or getting mad over Ned's decision and Ned's
No,
honor.
Ned believes that he is dishonoring Cat with the marriage, right? He in front of
Right.
gods and men, and
Yeah,
the Blackfish sees that the Blackfish sees that this is a dishonoring Cat because it's not a legitimate marriage.
Yeah, and him really getting mad and being the actual father and him knowing that he's the father. I don't know, for some reason, all of a sudden, just makes a shit ton
The whole thing
of
click more. Yeah. Anyway. Yep. So, do we want to talk any more about Lewin Martell? We have talked about it before, so it's not.
We talked about
jumping
it
into it.
quite a few times. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to the 9 people here that might have a theory they want to discuss, because I mean, deck of cards just blew my mind on that one. It's like Mike said,
Well, it's nice that it was able to make you reassess and reevaluate and see things as because it's definitely in the story that he would be closer to Cat than he would be to Ned, and so that if Ned thinks it's dishonoring Cat, the Blackfish thinks it's dishonoring Cat as well, right? So
yeah, well, him loving Cat's mother might be another reason why everybody assumed that he didn't marry because he was gay. But him loving Cat's mother might be the reason he never marries because he was in love with
that's
somebody.
interesting. Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, I'll buy that. And as we said, he seems to love this, right? And we certainly talked about Teflon TV's version of Robb Stark as a bastard of Brandon, right?
Well, see, also, if Brandon and Ned do not have the same colored hair and the same features, the horse face, the brown, the gray, Rob's hair color and eye color hides the fact that it doesn't matter which one it was, their features are no longer there. It's the Tully feature. So even if Brandon and Ned aren't there are differences that would be noticeable, like some certain non-stark different features, then the Tully in Rob takes that out of the conversation. I mean, there's even though everybody and myself, I think too, believes that Brandon is the father of Rob, but like I said, I don't know. Is Ned described as just a shorter version of Brandon, or a shorter?
He's definitely described as shorter, that's for sure. But I don't know that we got a whole lot of description of Brandon.
Yeah, he's not nearly
Brandon.
as attractive or flamboyant as his brother. Or I forget, man, I can't remember. But I mean, still, I mean, Rob being Tully just takes that out of the conversation.
Sure.
He was, at this age, he was taller than Ned and had the Stark look. Then you could start to automatically lead. Well, maybe Brandon is definitely more. I mean, but still, like I said, Tully characteristics. It doesn't. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
You're starting off.
Recommend.
Yeah, you're starting off in quicksand on that theory because I mean he looks like a Tully, so you don't really have a whole lot to go off of. So your feet start to sink a little bit. So you got to try to build a really good foundation for the theory.
Well, there's some interesting textual support of it in terms of like which specific years of age that Catelyn thinks about for Rob and so forth. Now there is the time where she says 9 months later, basically, right? But but it's kind of in the context where she's just been talking about Brandon in addition to talking about Ned. So, and how she wed Ned
Also,
in Brandon's place and so forth.
yeah. Also, she's at River Run. She's not at Winterfell until Rob's a year, I think. I mean, it's long down the road. So the exact, I mean, everything that goes on around the birth of Rob, the only person we really have information to go off of are two, and that's Cat and Maester Lewin. I mean, everything
Oh,
else, yeah,
and people would point to the Nine Moons comment and say that proves it. But yeah, it would be poetic. Brandon's bastard legitimizing Ned's trueborn. I'm not entirely sold on that either, but okay. I do like Preston's interpretation of that chapter in terms of the Rob's will thing. Although Preston himself has somewhat been convinced by people saying, well, the whole point of that isn't that they're supposed to, clearly that's unlikely to be how John is established as legitimate. More likely, that's George introducing the concept of legitimizing bastards so that it's not out of nowhere later when Stannis is offering and when Roose has Ramsay legitimized, right? So
yeah,
so he's saying that he does realize that the actual point of that chapter isn't to set up how John will be legitimized. It's to set up the concept of legitimization of that Stannis and that for Ramsay and for Stannis with John.
yeah. Now, I've always thought, well, part of me has always thought that the is Brandon the secret father of Rob might be throwing you off the scent if Brandon is the secret father of John. Going the other way with it, or if Brandon's the father of both, and they're more brother than I mean,
Oh, but I like the idea that they're cousins, but it's the other way around that what everybody thinks, right? Because you do have that line of let them grow up as brothers, where people are like, well, does that mean that they're actually cousins, and does that line confirm that they're cousins? I like the idea that maybe it does confirm that they're cousins, but in the opposite direction.
yeah,
That's what people think.
yeah. Well, I mean, I've said it before many times that the old gods don't care
For
about
sure.
marriage. I mean, granted,
Oh,
they need the wedding in front of the words, not a wedding,
I
the
mean, that's
words.
the real point is that it's all a social construct that doesn't really mean anything, right? And that's
Right.
kind of that's
It's the firstborn of the firstborn is the top of the totem pole for that
and,
family. So
and yet I'm the one who's arguing that he's kind of writing about Eleanor Talbot, right? That there's lots of clues that George likes Richard III and the Richard III reforms. Like, if you want to know what Egg's reforms are, look up Richard III. It's clearly modeled after. Egg is being modeled after Richard III, and Tyrion's being modeled after Richard III, and Ned's being modeled after Richard III, and Stannis is being modeled after Richard III, and the Blackfire rebellions are modeled after Richard III. Anyway, but and part of the CC's Triple Targets episode 1, um, but part of course part of the symbolism of Jon Snow is is both the concept of Asher as the Dione being erased from history, but also see Triple episode 1, but also but also the idea that Jon Snow not having an identified mother makes him more of a Jesus character, right? Um, and that it's kind of the other way around, right? Where you're supposed to have a immaculate conception of the female, but now we've got this sort of the other way around. You've got Ned, and where's the mother? And then you've got Jon Snow.
Oh, on the Fever Dream. Has that been written
Yeah,
before or after the Game of Thrones was first made, first
before.
written? Because he steals from himself quite a bit, names
Oh, of
and
course.
characteristics, and
Oh yeah. There's lots of you're right. There are definitely names and things that are stolen from people. Yeah,
okay, here's a
Fever Dream
huge
is
spoiler.
1982.
Okay, and Game of Thrones was what, 96 or 86?
96.
96.
96.
I know it was a 6 in there. Um,
Yeah.
But the explanation for certain passengers that are on the fever dream might be the same explanations for certain race of people in this story. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
I'd try not to spoil it. I don't know who's going to plan on reading Fever Dream or not, but I mean,
Yeah.
I,
It's pretty good.
I'm getting kind of like chapter 17 now. I only listen to it for like 30 minutes a day, here or there, not day after day. But I mean,
Sure.
you're reading the book and you're like, can I apply this to Game of Thrones, or can I apply
Oh,
this to
sure.
Song of Fire? And now
Yeah,
I really
sure.
wish I had the whole book in front of me to where I could underline crap instead of hitting the rewind 30 seconds, rewind 30 seconds. So I might have to actually buy the book now.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
sure you could probably find it cheap used somewhere too. I imagine.
Second Charlie's down here is a really good place to get older books and stuff like that. With George's name on, I probably want a pretty penny because they tend to
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, it might actually be more expensive because it's older. Yeah, you may
yeah, it
just
might
have to
be.
maybe just buy
They
the
do the
ebook or something.
Amazon. Yeah, they do the Amazon, all that kind of stuff. They'll look up the prices, and then you'll pay probably. When we first started going there, everything was like cheap. It was pretty good, and now they're fully aware of how important their products are, and basically match Amazon and the higher prices of eBay to their product. It's like, okay, it's an hour drive for me. It's not. I'm not saving any money going there. So I might have to find another way to get the book. But yeah, I definitely
I
have
do,
to write a book now.
I do like how he tells how he tells them, if you press me, I will lie.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that was pretty good. uh, yeah, it's a
Well,
really good.
well, well. They eventually start making fun of the well. That's part of why I do that.
I, I
Anyway,
I have not let the hammer drop on reading other George R. R. Martin stories to see how they apply to this story. But after reading this, I mean, it's not flowing off the page. Every page this could go to a Song of Ice and Fire, but there are little things here and there that, oh, okay, well, I mean, let me scratch my head. I mean, he stole that name, he stole that characteristic. I mean, so maybe there's other stuff in other books that I possibly might need to know to help come with a better understanding of how I want to interpret this theory or that type thing. So, I mean, after I get done with this one, I might have to move on down to what is it, Dream Song or what?
yeah. The dream songs you can get. There's three audiobooks of that if you want to do that way too. Um, and that includes a song for Leah. The Glass Flower is really good. Um, I think it includes Seven Times Never Kill Man. Um, anyway, yeah, there's definitely some references to it. Like there's when we came across the Pale Child, I mentioned that that's from there and so forth. But yeah, Glass Flower is pretty good.
Yeah. Oh,
The tough books are pretty cool. So or his tough stories, I guess, tough voyaging. He's got tough's
oh,
Tough's kind of an interesting character. He's kind of a jerk, but he's kind of cool. He's kind of an arrogant jerk, but
yeah.
kind of a cool guy.
Well, the big
Um,
hammer on the head for me was the Pale King prophecy that's in the story, and I'm like, well, I mean, that could apply to
okay.
Song of Ice and Fire, that the White Walkers are looking for their Pale King to where they can be taken back to basically the promised land of where they come from, where they got
Oh,
kicked out.
so in a sense, you've got a character who thinks he's Rhaegar, right? Sort of, right?
They're looking for their Pale King, and is that Jon Snow? Is that somebody else? Who are they actually looking for? That they were kicked out of where they came from, and they can't get back without
Yeah.
this Pale King. So, the whole test to see what
Okay.
Waymore Roach's blood was like and
Okay.
everything. So, granted, the person's not a White Walker, but
Hello. Hi.
hey, how you doing? So, is it Jon Snow or someone
Yeah.
else? Is it
Anyway.
Bran?
All right.
They're looking
We,
for.
as you said, we probably shouldn't be spoiling Fever Dream too much.
Oh, my bad.
No,
Oh, just
no, no, that's fine. I prompted it. I was like, yeah, you could see it as kind of like the way people are wondering whether Rhaegar is the princess
I did
promised or
say
whether
at
it's the
the very
father the princess
beginning,
promised or whatever. Yeah,
I'm not used to doing that because they usually
yeah, yeah.
we don't
No, you're
do
right.
that.
You're right. Anyway,
My bad.
no, 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 that's all right. Yeah,
I wasn't
I
trying
do
to.
like Fever Dream's definitely a fun novel.
It's definitely got
Um,
some subject matter in there that's not appropriate at all.
sure.
Just some of the language and the time periods. The 1850s in New Orleans is not a very good place. So
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and eventually that's part of the point of the story, right? Is it's um, they're comparing slavery to preying upon men as vampires, and and part of the point is you've got a character there who's learning to um, who's learning that that's wrong, and who's gradually warming to the abolitionist view, who starts off
yeah,
really not wanting to rock the boat and so forth, and he's starting to see things. He's starting to grow as a character and see things correctly.
yeah.
Anyway,
No. All right, back to talking about story. Sorry, I took us off on a tangent there. Sorry about that.
no, 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 that's great, great. So maybe we should do more of an in-depth fever dream discussion sometime. But we didn't warn people that, so we probably shouldn't do that right now.
Yeah, my bad.
No, 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 that's all right. That's all right. Um, Um, lemon gate's always fun to talk about. So there were there was the lemon reference, and I do think it's implied that they have to import their lemons in that comment. And we specifically are told that the Riverlands is not books will never be finished. Okay, yeah, good. What's That's probably true. And as we've said though, we will learn more. There's there's reasons like first off, we know these got 75% of a book done. That will probably be published one way or another, right? And so if the worst things that happens, and he's discussed that if he were in a situation as with the Wheel of Time where he knew he didn't have time to finish, he would try and take steps to get some sort of ending to his audience. He's made that claim. Um, he's If the worst happens and he died suddenly, well, he's got 75% of the book done, apparently, right? And so there's a high probability that Paris and his estate would want to publish that right? And then um, he clearly did have a meeting with Dan and Dave. There's probably people from that. There's probably notes from that, and that could come out. And we've seen it with the library that there are like previous drafts and outlines and things, right? He says he doesn't outline, but that's clearly not really true because we've seen outlines in the Cushing Library. And so I do think that we're likely to also find out information about what he intended from those sources. So I do think we will have a version of additional information about how the story was intended to end. I do think there will be at least 3/4 of a book that will come out one way or another. And so people who say, we're never getting another book, I say, no, that's not true. People say, well, the books will never be finished. Yeah, that's probably is true, or not finished by George, most likely. But then again, if you get to the point where the end is in sight, you could see him being inspired and potentially being able to go faster at that point. I could see that happening. I don't think it's
Well,
zero chance. I'm saying I think there's some chance. Do I think that's likely? Probably not, but I think that's possible.
well, I mean, it's like the old nursery around the little engine that could. I mean, the problem is getting over that big
Yeah.
hill, and
Yep.
he's at that big hill for 13 years. So I mean, or 10,
Yeah.
however many years he is, he's still at that big hill, and that doesn't tell you how many times he's had to drop back and rewrite this, drop back and rewrite that, still trying to get over that hill but hopefully once it gets over that hill, then it's all downhill from there, and then we do get the pace that he wrote. I think at least two of the
Clash and
books. I mean,
Storm. Yeah.
yeah, I
So
mean,
96, 90. So probably took longer with the first book, honestly. But from 96 to 98, he publishes the second book, the third book, and some of the Duncan Egg stuff, right? And works on some of the rest of the Duncan Egg stuff. So
he
in a
can
period of
write.
4 years, a period just over 4 years, he published two of Song of Ice and Fire books plus Duncan Egg stories. So I believe that the reason he was able to do that was because he saw through A Storm of Swords clearly as he was writing, the book one, right? As he was thinking through book one, he was thinking through what happens next and so forth. And so he had that in his mind. If he gets close enough to the end that he has things in his mind, then you would expect something closer to now. He's a different person than he was. He's an older person than he was, and maybe he's not quite as prolific as he was at that point. But you could see that sort of inspiration and vision of I can see the end here. Could potentially stimulate much faster writing.
I think his head and his heart were both in Westeros for that time period where he got so
Mm-hmm.
much product out. And
Yep.
I don't think both of them have not been in Westeros since. One or
Yeah.
the other may
Well,
have been in Westeros, but I do not think both have been there with all the distractions and this show and that game. And so it's very hard once you get that HBO, a Game of Thrones fame, the whole world knows your name now. So it's hard enough to get your head and heart together on a lot of subjects, but to have so many distractions and this part of your life is pulling your brain that way, and this part of your life is pulling your heart that way. So I agree. I want them finished. I said it before. I want George's words on George's pages. I don't want anybody else's. Um, but I do fear that that is the reason we're taking so long is that the head and the heart aren't in the same place at the same time. And that's not to knock George. I mean, I couldn't do it. I couldn't write 2 pages of his book for sure. But I mean, I, I I I hope we get it. But like I said, if we don't, what could I say?
let's see here. I don't have a formal outline. I'm not one of those writers who outlines every. What's going to be in every scene. What's going to be in every chapter. I might be faster if I did. Anyway, yeah. There's a line where he actually says, which is very scary line, where he actually says, um, once I see where the story's going, I lose all interest. that's the problem. Is that it's possible that that's where he's at, right? Is that he knows where the story's going and he's lost all interest. Because I know that he
I
said something along
understand
those
what you're
lines.
saying. The journey ahead, when you're not exactly sure where it's going to take you, is an exciting one because you don't know what's right around the bend. You
Yeah,
don't know what's going to be happening on the very next page. Um, and then once you get to the okay, well, here comes the light at the end of the tunnel. I know exactly where we're going. Yay! And there's not a whole lot of enthusiasm there, so I do understand that comment for sure.
yeah, and that's the most unfortunately most depressing comment. Part of that comment isn't
In
that he
my
doesn't
younger
like
years, I would call that
to
the short timer disease. When you know you're getting ready to leave a job, it is really hard to get enthusiastic about getting up and going to that job. Whether it's your final week, your 2 week notice, the whole man, I don't really care. You want to, so it doesn't mess you up on the next job, but you already got the next job lined up. They've already hired you. That's the reason you put the notice in. Don't let me a couple of days off just before I start my new job. This guy's awful yelling at me today, or I don't want to clean that bathroom. I mean, whatever it was. I mean, you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can go to the beach for a couple of days. I have no problem with that. Bye. Is that the right thing to do? No. Was it the fun thing to do? Yeah. So I can understand some of that on George's part.
Yeah. He definitely prefers his gardening technique over outlining
He's
it.
a thief and a fisherman. What are you talking about? He's not a gardener.
Fair enough.
I
He says he is. He says he is,
know.
but I understand your uh, and was it Adam Newman with uh, the Marinese blot that talks about uh, that is hilarious. I tried this video because it popped on my feed, thinking nothing of it, and now I'm deep in the conversation. I like your takes. Well, thank you,
See, that's what
thank you.
happens when there's only 10 people watching.
Yeah,
It's a
uh,
loaded question. There are a lot of
our
people
takes
that
are
get mad.
definitely different. Our takes are definitely different. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but his question was, it's one of those that a lot of people will get mad if you say one thing on it this way, or get mad if you go the other way with it. So I mean, it's not an easy question for those that love this story, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, that's enough getting depressed on that.
Yeah, no, I got a little sad and a little teary eyed. Thanks a lot, Jody. Uh,
No, it's definitely worth talking through.
yeah,
The well, anyway, I was saying that I do think there's some Lemongate evidence in that actually in the sample chapter, right? In terms of that they used up every lemon in Dorne, so that or every lemon in the Vale, so they'd have to send to Dorne for more. Um, you're welcome. The uh, and of course, with the other sample chapter that we did already was the Arya sample chapter, which is one of the most blatant. There's no lemons here. when he's like, where's the citrus trees? Where's the hot women and the citrus trees and all these other things that he thought the three cities were full of, and they're like, maybe in Tyrosh, right? And we've talked before about how Danny actually has a Tyroshi accent, and people will say things like, "Well, that's because originally she was supposed to be in Tyrosh, but he changed it when he published a Game of Thrones." All right, so I mean, the biggest change when he published a Game of Thrones versus the Blood of the Dragon, the first time he published the Danny story, is that he added bigamy, which seems kind of suspicious, but. But the Sea Turtles Figures episode 1, but the and Jody, if you want to lose all respect for our takes, you can, you can see the triplet Targaryens videos, or maybe you'll have your mind blown and awakened. But anyway, some people take them the other way. But anyway, yeah, that we are very different in our takes. I know Martin initially planned on a time jump after John became, the famous 5-year gap and Jenny captured Marine. Do you think the fact he decided not to do that time jump has tied his hand? I do think that may have had some impact on it. Absolutely, that he chose to grow the story when he probably should not have, beyond what was probably reasonable. But I like what we wound up with, even if it's not ever going to have a full completion of George. So yeah, there's pluses and minuses in that. I think that's so. He had this Thousand World series, and one of the most crucial periods in that time period is called the Interregnum. And in Irish folklore, there's a 5-year gap before the Red Sky came to power. It's called the Interregnum. And there's some interesting similarities between. I had to restart the book for sure. There's some interesting similarities between the Red Sky and Danny. The Red Sky is a product of an incestuous family and engages in incest. And he's I don't know that I've ever seen him referred to as a child of 3, but he's considered to be the child of triplets. and he's supposedly like 1/3 of them looks like one of his fathers, and 1/3 of them looks like another one of his fathers, and 1/3 of them looks like a third of his fathers. And Danny's called child of three, and I feel like that might be significant. Red sky kind of reminds me of the red comet. Actually, what a coincidence. So anyway, yeah, I do think I do strongly suspect that some of the red comet and the 5 year gap and things are perhaps a reference to the red sky, and especially given his interesting choice of his most prominent event being called the interregnum in his original Thousand Worlds series. So yeah, yes, I'm very aware of this 5 year gap plan. Now, we do have early drafts of A Feast for Crows and so forth, and so it does appear that he actually made the decision to drop that 5 year gap quite early. And at the very beginning of the third book, he says that the dragons are almost ready to ride. So it doesn't. People were always talking about it like, oh yeah, and he had to age up the dragons faster because of that. I'm like, did he though? Because like you can see in Dany's first chapter in Storm of Swords that she specifically says that they're almost big enough to ride. That it won't be more than a year before they'll be big enough to ride or something like that. So that part doesn't seem to be. One of the things that he did say about that was he made some comment about the 5 year gap and about how, well, if a 12-year-old has to conquer the world, so be it. And what's interesting about that is the only characters that would be younger than 12 at the time when he was deciding that meant a 12-year-old would have to conquer the world would be Arya and Bran. So the implication would be that Arya and Bran are actually the important characters rather than Jon and Dany, which is very interesting implication, right?
Yeah, everybody's on the brand bandwagon. I'm saying it. Sorry.
But certainly, I mean, you've got the show where the two most important characters at the end were probably Bran and Arya, right? Arya in terms of finishing off Winter, and Bran in terms of becoming the ruler at the end, right? And so it is kind of interesting that as he's making a quote that clearly implies that those are the important characters rather than Jon and Dany, that everybody in the fandom still tends to be obsessed with like Jon and Dany and maybe maybe Aegon and maybe Arianne or Myrcella or something, but not as much with Bran and Arya.
90% of the story is distraction.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the reasons I like the Bran portion of the story because it feels like it's the part that's not a distraction.
Most of the time, the parts that are the distraction are my favorite. Like most people, are my favorite parts, and
Sure.
the ones that aren't the distraction and where I start to need to really pay attention are the ones that I'm like, oh, when's this chapter going to end? And I mean, it's I want the distraction. I want the which is I think is how he intentionally wrote the story.
Oh, sure, sure, and as we
it would be a hard reader that would pay attention to the whole story and see through the smoke screen or the camouflage or the lipstick, however you want to put it, that get to the part that really matters. Instead of me, just I want the sword fights. I want the wolves. I mean, it's just I don't know.
And actually, speaking of which, the next three sections we have to go through are Faramir, right, the prologue of a dance, Bran, and then the story of the North and dance. So all the stuff that's associated with everything that's associated with the White Walkers and the North storyline is the next three things we're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're right around a minute till the hour, so we can wrap up here.
We appreciate the comment, even though it kind of made us a little teary-eyed. It definitely is a conversation starter for sure. We do an hour Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday and Fridays are rereading chapters in the book, and Wednesday is our theories days. Just to throw something at the wall, see what sticks, what somebody in the comments bring up for us as far as theory talk. But we appreciate you joining us. Glad you got a chuckle out of out of this. So we appreciate it. But we will see everybody hopefully everybody on Friday. And y'all have fun. Take care. Bye. Bye,
Yeah.
Richard.